All right, it's jpeg2RAW, show number 130, coming to you December 2nd, fresh off of our Thanksgiving break. And I did get some things done, even though the studio looks exactly like it did before. I have not tackled that project yet. But Tim, I got some things done behind the scenes. I think last time we were on the show, I kept saying back of the scenes. That's totally wrong. Behind the scenes, I got a bunch of stuff behind the scenes. A lot of things like old post, fixing those things that nobody will ever look at, but that bothered me, and I've been working on fixing all those things. So did get a lot done, and we will have this show. We have, I think, 2 more shows, then we take another 2-week break for Christmas, New Year's, where maybe I'll start tackling the whole studio project. But tonight we have a great guest, and before we get to him, because I know as soon as I get to him and then we do the closing stuff, no one will ever see it, I'm going to do a few things on the front end that I normally do on the back end. And that is talk about something like the forums, jpeg2RAW.com/forums. You know, if you don't want to be part of our Facebook group, you don't want to be part of our Google Plus community, we also have the forums. You can go over there and do that. And then if you do want to be part of the Facebook group, that's fine. It's just search for jpeg2RAW on Facebook. And this being the holiday season, and we're going to do a holiday show next week, Tim, don't forget to use our link, jpeg2RAW.com/Amazon. Anytime you're going to go to Amazon, just use that link. I should set up a bookmark for you to do it, so it'll be easier. There is a link on our website that you can do, and click on that and go there. But you need to do it every time you go, or else it won't count toward it. We get a small credit, and we use that to do things like we're going to do this month. Every year, December, we do a photo contest. Normally it's a challenge. Every month is a challenge where we have a theme and you got to shoot something that month for that theme, except for December where it's a contest. Your best image or your favorite image, whatever, for the year, for 2014, and then we have a prize. I haven't announced what the prizes are yet, but those prizes are paid for by the commissions we get from Amazon. Tim and I both do this for free. Actually, I do it for negative. for less than free, because we just love photography and love talking to great photographers like we're going to talk to tonight. But we want to be able to give something back besides just a show, and we use those funds to do that. So if you're going to be going to Amazon, don't forget to use our link. Again, it's just jpeg2RAW.com/Amazon. And then we also have an affiliate link with Topaz Labs, which is jpeg2RAW.com/Topaz Labs. All right, enough of that. I got that out of the way on the front end. Tonight we have somebody I've been following on Flickr, somebody I've been following on Facebook, and I recently subscribed to his YouTube page. And this guy has got to be, Tim, the most creative person we've had on the show. Just amazing. As crazy as you're going to see some of the stuff he's done now, I'm going to show you some stuff later on that was going to blow your mind in the same kind of way, but also differently. And Joel's probably wondering, what am I talking about? But I'll get to that a little bit later. It is Joel's work. Tonight's guest is Joel Robison.
How's it going, Joel? I'm
good. Glad to be here.
And Joel, you when I first started talking to you about coming on the show, you lived in Canada, and our time zones wouldn't have been that far off. And then now you've moved to where?
To beautiful, rainy Surrey, United Kingdom. So just south of London, actually.
So what made you move over there, if you don't mind sharing?
It was sort of I was at a crossroads in life of having the opportunity to move wherever I wanted, and I just decided to kind of throw my sail out and see wherever it landed. And a friend of mine that lives in the UK kind of gently suggested that I move here, and I couldn't think of a good enough reason to say no. So that now I'm here. Short story.
Yeah. So how are you liking it so far?
It's amazing. I mean, to come from Canada, where our history is not as long lasting as the United Kingdom, to be here wandering around castles and seeing all the history and seeing all the stories, and the weather is actually great for a photographer. The overcast skies are wonderful because you don't have to worry about harsh shadows.
Yeah. And I was talking in the pre-show with Tim about how I jump around in the show notes, so I'm going to do that right now, Tim. Do you think that when you move from one location to the other, in this case Canada to England, that actually that may be a creative spark for you and actually get the juices flowing there and creatively?
Definitely, I think so. I spent a lot of my time in the same spot in Canada, and as beautiful as it was starting to get too familiar, and so I needed the challenge of going somewhere new and exploring new places, and I try and do that every day while I'm here, is walk around and find somewhere new to go and explore and see.
Yep. How did you get into photography in the beginning? Have you been doing it forever?
No, not at all. When I was younger, I was very artistic. I have two brothers, and they were both blessed with the athletic gene, and I was definitely not. And my parents kind of fostered that artistic interest that I had, and my life goal was to be an animator at Disney. I wanted to make movies, and I loved drawing, I loved creating, I loved kind of coloring, and I got to the point where I was about 14 and realized that I couldn't really draw that well. And so I kind of felt lost because I didn't have any other idea of how I was going to be this creative person I felt I was, and I kind of just gave up on everything. I took one photography class in high school, and as my photography teacher now reminds me, I told her that I hated it and I never wanted to use a camera again. And it wasn't very long after that I came across Flickr, actually, while I was in university. And I was just looking for reference photos, and I came across amazing pieces of work on Flickr.com. And kind of on a whim, I just decided to buy a camera from eBay, and I had no idea how to use it. I had no idea what the different lenses were, and I just kind of threw caution to the wind and spent all the money I had on a camera and taught myself how to use it.
And how long ago was that?
That was about 6 years ago.
Wow, you've come a long way in a short time.
Yeah.
So are you now a full-time photographer? Or
I am, yeah. I was working the last 6 years in the high school, or in the school system in Canada. And then last year I was finally able to make photography my full-time career.
Okay. And you were working, if I remember correctly, with handicapped children or challenged.
I was working with students with autism was kind of my specialty, or my area. Working with different learning disabilities as well, but I've really enjoyed working in the school system and helping other people.
My wife was a teacher, and she often works in I don't know, there's a certain group that they call them. I can't remember what they call them. If I try and say it, I know I'm going to be wrong, so I'm just going to not say it. But she really enjoys her time working with the children like that.
I like it a lot.
Yeah. So you've made the jump to full-time photography, and you also recently, I don't say recently, I think it's recently, got approached by Coke and did a project with them.
That's kind of how me being able to make the jump into full-time photography started. Last year, when I was ready to make the transition from kind of working a full-time job to being a photographer, but I had no idea of how to make that happen. And I believe in putting things out there and waiting for it to happen, and it definitely came knocking at my door. And last year I left my home in September, and I traveled for 9 months with Coca-Cola and FIFA ahead of the FIFA World Cup, and I was the lead photographer on Coke's biggest marketing campaign.
Wow. So how did they find you? How did that, if you can share that, how did that interaction happen?
Well, just like I came across photography through Flickr, they found me on Flickr. I had posted some photos when I was just starting out of some Coke bottles in the snow as part of a themed group. You were talking about themed competitions or themed contests you have, and I was a part of a group that was doing that, and a daily theme happened to be Coke bottles. And I live in Canada, and it's in January, there's nothing but snow, so I had to get creative, and I just went outside and put some Coke bottles in the snow, and they found that photo and they really liked it, so they wanted to post it on Twitter. And shortly thereafter, they asked me to moderate their Flickr account and to kind of lead this project, getting people that really love the brand to submit their own photos. And after that was finished, I kind of went to Atlanta, actually, and felt like I was putting myself all on the line, begging and pleading for another opportunity, whatever they had. But they already had something in mind for me, and that was this world tour.
That's amazing. I'm looking at, I got some of the images pulled up now, and I know you can't see it because you're not in you're not looking at the live chat, but on Flickr you have an album, I think, that is called what is it called? Like Coca-Cola or something? Coca-Cola
I do have Coke pictures on there. Yeah.
I'm hold on. I'm trying to find it now. You got so many here. I've missed it. There's an album that Coca-Cola, is that related to the tour, or is that just Coke photos?
That was related to the first kind of project I worked on with them, which was they had a list of positive themes that they really wanted to associate their brand with, and I was creating images based around those themes every 2 weeks, and then getting other fans and other photographers to create their own images using those same themes. So I was using Flickr as a way to engage Coca-Cola's customers.
Okay. And so one day they contact you, want to use your photo for a few things, and then later come back and offer you a job.
The job of a lifetime, yeah.
That must have just been a fantastic feeling to know that all this is starting to pay off.
It was probably one of the most surreal days of my life, for sure. I've always been a fan of the brand, and I mean, as a marketing kind of, I like marketing. I like good marketing. You couldn't ask for a better company, I don't think, than Coke, who knows how to market. So, yeah.
I can't imagine receiving a call, Tim. That you're sitting there doing whatever. Maybe you're editing photos. Maybe you're doing whatever.
I was actually at work when they called.
Okay, so you're at work. You get a call, and the call is, we want you to go on tour.
Yeah.
Around the world and be the lead photographer. That is just that is a great day. And
I wasn't allowed to tell anyone for several months, so I had to keep it a secret. So I mean, it was great news, and I was definitely very humbled to be chosen, and it definitely kind of kickstarted a whole new level of my career.
So when did that actually start, and did you go on tour, and when did you get done with it?
Yeah, it started September 9th last year, and it actually ended this year at the end of April. And at the end of it, I had been to 85 countries in that time span, and spent a lot of time with the FIFA World Cup trophy.
So were you actually gone for 9 months doing this?
Pretty much, yeah. I came home twice for about a week and a half, really only to come home and get visas for the next kind of chunk of time that I was gone. So I came home and kind of did laundry and then left again. And I was gone for a long time.
So as exciting as that call must have been, was it also a little scary knowing, hey, somebody's about to pay me to go on tour, and I'm going to be responsible for whatever I'm going to be responsible for. And imagine they're paying your expenses and they're paying you for your time and talent. Was that a little scary?
It definitely was. I mean, FIFA and Coca-Cola are two of the biggest kind of brands in the whole world, and it was definitely, I didn't think about it at the time, but then there were times when I was working thinking, I have a very big job to do. And not only was I the photographer, but I was also the voice of social media for the tour as well. So I had to make sure that I was kind of representing everyone in the best way possible. But everyone seemed really happy with the results. So
yeah, it's one of those things you definitely say yes to when they call. And then when you hang up and you have a moment to think about it, you go, oh boy.
Now what?
What? Yes. Well, congratulations on that, and congratulations on the move, and now, moving to a full-time photographer. Do you just shoot the conceptual stuff, or are you also shooting, clients where you're doing things like weddings or seniors or anything else, or what all do you shoot?
I mostly do conceptual work. I have done some portrait shoots in the past, usually just for family, friends, or for people that I know. I don't really advertise kind of portrait sessions. It's not necessarily something that I feel very passionate about. I think that the people that do wedding photography and portrait photography well, I applaud them, and I have no problem sending people to those people that do it really well, because I'd rather promote a very good photographer than me try and get away with something that I know I'm not very, very good at. So I try and stick to what I know.
Yeah, and like I mentioned before, that your images are fantastic, and we're showing some of them now. You sent me some, I think 22, 23 of them, and we're streaming them now as we talk. And like I say every show, I'm streaming a quality that's reduced because bandwidth wise and everything like that.
Yeah.
I would highly encourage anybody listen to this or watching this later on or now to go to Joel's webpage. We'll have all the links and where you can see these things in better resolution and much clearer, and you'll be even more amazed than what you're seeing now. So going through, you do these scenes that are just, if you haven't seen these, if you're listening to this, because we do have about half of the people who get it through audio. So if you've seen these are very surreal. I'm trying to think of what they make me think of. Some of them are like Alice in Wonderland, maybe.
Yeah.
You mentioned Disney, and I think I can see that there's a Disney feel to some of these, but a lot of them feature you in the image also. Are these down this path? Are these the ones you're marketing and going to sell? And if you are, what do you do to find a market for these?
Yeah, I do license just about all of my images in one way or another. I work with 2 stock agencies right now, which is Archangel Images and Trevelyan Images, and they supply photography for book covers and album covers. They have a client list that they take their images and use, and I've had quite a bit of success with them, having my work published internationally on book covers, and it's been great. And I also have found that in the last couple of years that I've been able to license a lot of work on my own just through using social media and just people finding and appreciating the work that I do and wanting to use it for their projects. So the market is out there. I wish that I knew kind of the address of where to find everyone, because I would be writing to them every day, but it comes, and people, I think what's great is that people like myself are starting to produce work that people want to buy, and it's not as traditional as it was in the past, where maybe a book publishing company had 1 or 2 people that they kind of relied on, and now they're kind of branching out into the global collective of artists, and work is being shared in a brand new way, which is great.
Yeah, you mentioned Flickr on how Coke found you, and I think that happens a lot. I don't know how often, but not people get found through Flickr. You never know where you're going to be found, where somebody's going to find you. And
I think that's true. Yeah.
Yeah. You also have a calendar out there, and I'll have the link to that. I'll have the link to that in the show notes where you're selling a calendar. I think you had a Cyber Monday or Black Friday or something like that deal.
I did. Yeah.
So everybody, you missed that, but the pricing is still really good on that. So I would go out there and look at it. We'll have it in the show notes so you can go take a look at it for his calendar. The one thing we've talked about in the past with somebody who's doing this for a living is you got the creative side, and you definitely have that. And then the thing that really that makes you successful is the business side of that. And weddings and seniors and all that have their own challenges for business wise. And imagine selling what you do, which is very creative work, has its challenges too on the business side. Is that something you feel comfortable with, or is that something you're still looking to improve, the business side?
I think that's kind of the part that I struggle with on a daily basis. It's not necessarily the staying creative part or the photography side of it. I think that's kind of the happy part of my brain. The stress part of my brain is the organization one. I'm not a very organized person in general, so becoming my own boss and knowing that everything is kind of down to just me kind of scared me into being more organized. So in some ways I'm hyper organized, and in some ways I'm still working on it, but definitely I think that there's challenges when you're kind of doing anything on your own. But the great thing is that you kind of steer the course of where you want your business to go, and I don't have anyone to answer to. It's just myself, and if I don't feel comfortable with what someone's offering to pay, or if I don't feel comfortable with what someone wants to do with my images, I can say no. And likewise, I can decide who I want to work with and kind of the direction that I want my work to go in.
Very awesome. So where do you get your inspiration from? Because as I'll show later on, I mean, you have done so many of these, and each individual one is something that a lot of people would struggle with, the creativity and designing that one image, and yet you do them seemingly at ease daily. Where do you find your inspiration?
I've always been a very visual person, and seeing a lot of things kind of in pictures in my mind. I've always been able to kind of translate conversations and ideas through pictures, and it's hard to explain, but I just generally see these images kind of as people are talking, and as I'm reading or as I'm walking, thinking about my daily life, I kind of get these glimpses of what that would look like if I were to show it to someone. And that's kind of where my inspiration or my ideas come from, is just that everyday life, but trying to heighten it to a way that is a bit more interesting than everyday life. I really like to take objects that we see all the time and play with the idea that anything is possible. I think that if I had kind of a life motto, it would be anything is possible. And I like to show that in my work by using kind of everyday objects, everyday things, and just changing the way that we see them and changing the way that we use them, and using them in a way that maybe people didn't think about before they saw one of my photos. And I like to play with that idea that anything is possible. And I think that kind of opportunity of expanding what you see and what you know is real and what isn't real is inspiring to me, because it really opens a door to limitless possibilities.
Very good. So, looking at your images, there's obviously some editing going on after the fact. You got the shoot you do. Yeah, you got the shoot you do, and then you got the editing you do afterwards. And you're great at both of them, because I've watched one of your videos where you quickly go through how you did this amazing shot, and we'll have the links to that too in the show notes. But do you find the shooting, the creativity of the idea and the shooting of what you're going to use more challenging, or the editing afterwards? And which one do you spend more time on?
It really depends on the image that I'm taking. I tend to rush the shooting part, which is something that I'm guilty of doing, which I get a little nervous when I'm shooting in public or in a place where I think someone might be watching, just because it probably looks very strange. But I try and take my time, and the shooting part is very much I get into a zone where I tend not to think too much about anything else while I'm doing it. And so there's been times when I go out to take a photo that I think will take 20 minutes and it ends up taking 2 hours, just because I'm kind of lost in my own world of photography. But that's kind of the exciting part. The photography part is the chance where I don't listen to music, and I usually don't have anyone else with me, and maybe if I do, it's one or two other friends. And it's usually quiet, and it's a time for me to kind of create. And then Photoshop is the time where I kind of turn into the mad scientist, and I kind of like, everything kind of boils together, and I kind of crack my knuckles and just think, okay, where can I take this now, and what can I do with it now?
And where did you learn your Photoshop skills? Because they're impressive. And you've only been shooting for 6 years, I think you said.
Just trial and error. I mean, you can find out how to do just about anything on the internet, and that's kind of how I started. Was just, I would just try and figure out how to use Photoshop in the way that I wanted to, but then figuring out how to do other things, and just reading different tutorials that existed, reading different websites that exist, just to help share knowledge. And then once you kind of get the bare bones of what Photoshop can do, it really just kind of snowballs from there. And it's a program that just lets you do whatever you really want to do. And once I kind of got into that realm of Photoshop, it kind of just took on a life of its own, and I just kind of was trying new things and trying different ideas and seeing if I could make it work. And sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't, but that's the great thing about Photoshop.
Yep. Okay, so a lot of your images have a somewhat similar feel to them. You can look, you're in it, a lot of them, but outside of that, I can feel that this is a Joel shot in a lot of them. How do you both have that creativity in creating new stuff, but also stay true to who Joel is? Do you find that as a challenge?
Yeah,
you get in a rut, maybe.
I think that there's a fine line between kind of being stuck in the same idea or creating the same idea over and over again, and having a style. And I think that's something that it takes a long time of shooting to finally develop a style. I think that's one of the biggest compliments that someone can say, is when they see an image and they know that it's yours, because you don't have to have your name on that to know that people kind of recognize that as your work. And I think that it's hard to kind of constantly come up with new ideas that fit who I am. And I think that as my career kind of goes on, I get a little bit more conservative in my ideas maybe, or I feel like I have to kind of keep things in a certain box. Just pressure or creative pressure maybe. But I try not to let myself get caught up in that. I try just to create what I want to create and what feels right to me, and to tell the stories that I have, and still find a way to make it my style and have it be a part of myself.
Okay. And I'm pulling up your webpage now so people can see some of the images on there. As you have a little screensaver that plays on the front end that shows a lot of your images there too. And I noticed in the background on one of these, looks like the background you had in your water shot, your couch water shot, that print. Okay. So have you ever had a shot that just did not work? You go take the shoot, you go do the shoot, you come home, you spend whatever amount of time in Photoshop, and you just cannot get it to where you want it to go. And it's just give up. I'm going to move on to something else.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I've done a few 365 projects where you take a photo a day for a whole year, and there's not a whole year where you're going to have a perfect day in life in general. As a photographer, it's certainly not going to happen. There's going to be bad weather, or you're going to be rushed for time. And I know that there's many of those photos that I would look back on now and not be particularly happy with. And even now, I know that sometimes I want to just shoot because I'm at an interesting place, or there's something, there that I want to capture, and I try and force it. And I kind of recognize it as it's happening that this is probably not going to go anywhere that I want it to go. Sometimes I'll try and force it in Photoshop, but it usually ends up in the folder that never sees the light of day. But yeah, I think it's still good to shoot those photos. I think it's still good to go out and to take photos, and even if it's not the perfect light, or even if it's bad angles, or it's not working, I think it's important to just keep doing it, just so you know what the difference between good and bad work is, or good or bad photos are. I think that if you can recognize that this isn't up to my standard, then that means that you're working hard at creating a really good portfolio. You're not just posting or sharing whatever kind of comes out of your camera.
Right. And you mentioned something that I mentioned on the front end about something you did that was just incredible, and you led me into that, so I'm going to go right to that now. The 365-day project. Mm-hmm. Tim and everybody out there who's watching this, just the 20-something images that we've been streaming, slideshow, and are going on behind me too. Those all are amazing, and look like they've taken that almost could be a year's worth of work, or in some cases even more than that. But Joel, I'm going to go over to your Flickr page here. Joel, you've done was that 365? I've
done 4 of them, yeah.
That you have posted here.
Not on anymore.
Yeah, but I said, I looked at that and I go, well, there's got to be like pictures of your foot, or pictures of, I've seen people who do 365 projects, and it's what on earth is moving around me that I can take a photo of. Tim, you guys have to go to his Flickr page and look through his 365. Every single one of these, I mean, he did one every day that is amazing every day. I don't know how you can be so consistently good every day.
Partly I don't. Partly I'm stubborn. Is the main key. I think I didn't want to give up.
Yeah.
But thank you.
I think I'll link directly to some of these albums so people can go to them. But to go there and this puts a 365-day project in a whole nother realm when you're able to do this every single day. But again, when I watch, for me, this would be just a whole weekend worth of editing for one of these images. But watching you do that one with the couch in the water, and you doing it slower for us so you can talk through it. You did it in like 11 minutes. And I know you said you did it more than once, but still you did it really fast. So that, I guess, that means maybe you didn't have to spend 24 hours creating every one of these, but it's still an impressive body of work.
Thank you. I think that's I think that projects like that are what does help accelerate people's abilities, or maybe people's kind of level of work. I think even if I'm also a runner, and I think that if I ran every day, I would definitely be faster at the end of a year than I would be at the start of a year. So I think it's the same as a photographer. If I take a picture every day, or if you work on something every day, you're going to be better at it at the end of that year than you were at the beginning of that year. So I think that if anyone is just starting out, that those types of projects where you measure your success in a specific amount of time, it's definitely going to help you grow. I mean, you can do one photo a week for a year, or one photo every Monday for a year, or whatever it is, but you're going to get better no matter what at the end of that, because you're working every opportunity you can.
Yeah, and I think often what I've seen with 365 projects is many people just take it as almost a chore. What is around the house I can take a photo of, but it sounds like you used it in a way that, like you said, with running, it's like with anything, practice makes perfect. If you're an athlete, I have a son that's in track, and a son is used to be a swimmer, and they practice a lot. And same thing with anything, with photography, with your running, is if you take a 365 project and you're committed to using it as an avenue to improve yourself, and not just a check in the box for the day, at the end of the year you should be better. It won't take the whole year, but to get better. But
hopefully not.
But you should get better as time goes on. All right, sure. And I also noticed something called Meetups on here.
Yeah.
Vancouver Meetup. I thought I saw Los Angeles Meetup. Tell me about those. What?
The meetups kind of just started organically. There was a group of kind of conceptual photographers like myself that, like in any group situation, you kind of herd yourself kind of with like-minded people, and we started all talking to each other online through Flickr and then on Facebook, and we were scattered kind of all throughout the world now, but at the time most of us were kind of concentrated in North America. And 2 years ago, we just decided, well, we need to actually sit down and meet in person and kind of be friends in real life instead of just on the computer screen. And so there was a group of about 25 of us that decided just to meet. And we met in Indiana for the first time. And it was, for most of us, it was the first time we'd ever really met another conceptual photographer in real life. And it was kind of just, I wish that I could explain it in the best way, but anyone that was there will tell you it was just this explosion of creativity, and it was just like getting all of the most talented people in a room and just letting them create, and it was magic. And ever since then, we've really made a concerted effort to do it as much as we can, to meet with each other. And so, like you said, there's been meetups in Vancouver, there's been meetups in Los Angeles. We had one this summer actually where we took over a whole island in Western British Columbia. We just called it Flickr Island, and we camped on an island, and there was about 50 of us from all over the world, from Germany and Austria, all across North America, and we just spent a week together. And by now we're more than just photographers, we're very good friends. We know each other inside and out, and it all came from this shared love of photography. We've managed to find these people that we really, really appreciate and really, really care about.
That's awesome. I think meetups are a great idea, and we've thought about doing one for Jpeg2RAW. In this case, is someone essentially organize them? Because when you get that many people, you've got scheduling, you've got the logistics are going to be an issue.
We're getting better at it. The first one was kind of just a test, and we're getting much better at it. This year's organization was top notch. My friends that organized it were very organized. There was lots of food. Everything was done very, very well. I've hosted a small one in the Rocky Mountains in Canada, and it's a little bit stressful to organize people and food and making sure everyone's happy, but it's definitely worth it when you get to see the amount of work that people get to do because they're around people that understand.
Okay. All right. Going back to your shoots, it looks like most of them are natural light. Do you like dealing? Am I right in that they're natural light? Yeah. And do you like dealing with just using the natural light, or do you ever use strobes?
I haven't used strobes. No, I really like using natural light. For me, when I lived in Canada, I lived in the Rocky Mountains, and I was very fortunate to literally walk 2 steps out of my door and be in the forest and in the woods. And photography quickly became not only a hobby where I was creating images, but I was also hiking and going outside and spending time outdoors. And for me, using natural light really helps you be more in tune with the world around you. You spend a lot of time kind of analyzing, when does the sun go down? What do the clouds look like today? What does the sky look like? Is it raining? Is it gonna rain? You know, you're always kind of thinking about what the world is doing around you. And I think in today's world where we're so busy all the time and there's so many gadgets in front of our faces at times, it's really a great opportunity to use natural light as a way to connect yourself back to the world and back to the earth. Is kind of pay attention to where's the light hitting and where's the shadows going to be. And it people kind of maybe think of using natural light as kind of a wimpy way out of photography, or just kind of the cheap way of doing it. But I think it also gives you an opportunity to really pay attention to your surroundings. You can't manipulate the sun, and you can't manipulate natural light as much as you can with artificial light. So you have to know what you're doing. You have to search for the best spot where the shadows are going to look the right way, or search for the best spot where the light is hitting the trees in the best way. So it takes a little bit more work, I think, than strobes.
Yeah, and I guess personally, the way I feel about it is some people are natural light photographers because they don't know how to use strobes, and they really, in a situation where they're shooting, they should be. But there's other people like you who you don't need them. Your end result didn't need that strobe. So why add the complexity? And that's another complexity. Dealing with the light that exists is its own complexity, but then adding in another one. So, like anything in photography, there's guidelines that are meant to be broken.
Yeah, I would like to try it one day, but I'm happy using the sun, and I use my cell phone sometimes.
Melissa out in chat asked, asked if we talked about gear yet, and we haven't. What kind of gear do you like to shoot with? What camera and lens wise?
For most of my work up until last year when I started working on the Coke Tour, I was using a Canon Mark II with a 50mm lens, and then one of the perks of getting that job was I got a brand new kit, which is awesome.
Yeah.
It had to be a Sony kit, which I was not prepared for. So I switched entirely all the way to Sony, and I kind of got a lot of backlash for that. People are very kind of one side or the other, and I was kind of not even on the fence. I was in a totally different farmyard. But I now shoot with the Sony A99, and I'm using mostly right now an 85 1.4 for my portrait work, and for if I need it, I use a 24x70. But I really enjoy the Sony camera. It's a beautiful camera, and I don't think it gets enough credit in today's market.
Tim is a Sony shooter.
You can repeat that as much as you want.
I'm Nikon. Tim is Sony.
I got the A77 right here with my 26.
Perfect.
1650 on it, and I love my 85 1.4. But you got the full frame camera, so that really is perfect with that camera.
It's a great camera, and I challenge anyone that kind of is looking down on it to really give it a try. I've lent it out to my friends that haven't used one before, and I think I've actually converted a few of them over to Sony, and it's quiet, it's fast, it's a beautiful camera, and it's sort of like giving the finger to the main companies, like try something new, and you never know, you might find something that you really enjoy.
Yeah, we used to have a Canon user as a third co-host, so it was Nikon, Canon, and Sony. And Sony makes a lot of the lenses for Nikon. I mean, not lenses, sensors for Nikon. So there's a lot of blending going on there between the at least Sony and Nikon.
Yes.
Yeah. And we've lost your video here, but mainly for audio, we want to be able to listen to you. Let me get back on track. So, editing. I know you do a lot of Photoshop editing. Do you use any other programs or actions or plugins or anything like that?
I don't. I stick mostly to just Photoshop. I've created my own actions just to help with my workflow, just resizing things and merging things, and and some of the color adjustments that I'm familiar with or that I like to have. My images look the same way. If I know that an image kind of matches a previous image, I'll apply the same custom action that I have. It just makes things run a little bit faster. Sure. Why not take some shortcuts if you don't?
And now that Photoshop, you can't buy it, you have to subscribe to it. Are you doing the Adobe Creative Cloud?
No, I have Adobe or Photoshop CS 5.1 still. I'm kind of old schooling it for now, but I probably will upgrade to the Creative Cloud when I finally decide to switch over.
Well, fortunately, you probably already know this, but in case anybody out there listening doesn't, fortunately, they have the photography bundle or whatever they're calling that thing.
Photographer's bundle.
Yeah, which is like $9.99 a month, I think. Or if you prepay for a year, it's like $119. You have to do it every year, but you get Photoshop and Lightroom with it.
Yeah.
And okay, so next question from Melissa is, how do you shoot these portraits since you're in them? I imagine some kind of timer or remote and tripod.
Yeah, I actually had someone write an article about me without contacting me, and they wrote that I had an assistant that actually took all the photos for me, which is not true at all. I do not have an assistant. I do take the pictures myself with a remote control. It does take a bit of a steep learning curve to be in front and behind of the camera. You have to move a little bit faster sometimes, and you have to kind of know what's working and what's not. But I use a remote. Sometimes it's the 20-second dash if I forget that, and you have to kind of figure out how to do it. But I found that self-portraiture for me, when I first started in photography, I'm a bit of a perfectionist, and I didn't really want people to know that I was taking pictures if I wasn't very good at it. So I wanted it to be kind of a secret until I felt good enough about it that I could share it with people. But then I wanted to really take photos of people, but I still wasn't ready to take pictures of anyone else. So I just used myself, and I quickly realized that it became very therapeutic for me. It was a chance for me to be alone and for me to use myself in my own stories, and it became kind of a time for me just to be quiet and just be by myself, which we don't always get a lot of time to do. And I enjoy it now. It's kind of a nice break away from the rest of the world.
So as I'm looking at some of the pictures that I see streaming through, and I'm actually streaming them to the public right now, but you mentioned before you use an 85-1.4, before that you were using a 50,
yeah.
which depending on how you had them set up and what your distance was, that could have a fairly narrow depth of field.
Does, yeah.
Yeah. How were you, in your images are obviously where you want them to be, they're sharp. How were you dealing with that when you're 15, 20 feet away from the camera?
I do expansions, which is, it can be a hefty job. So yeah, with a fixed lens, you're really only getting a narrow kind of image. You're just getting one snapshot. So sometimes I'm barely fitting in the frame. It's very strategically placed. And then running back, setting the camera to manual focus, and then almost like a panorama, you just kind of sweep through the background and take all the background shots you need. And then in Photoshop, it's like a puzzle. You kind of stick all those pieces together, and you get that really sharp focus on the subject and the really nice blurred background.
So is that what when you say expansion, that's what you're doing? You're taking like focus stacking almost, or you're leaving it on the tripod, not being moved, and then you just change the focus point.
So I take a photo. If it's with me or with a model, I take that photo. Once the model photo is taken, I just go back and switch the focus mode to manual focus. The focus is then locked on where it was set with the person in the frame, and then it's sort of just like a panorama. You're just going to swivel around and take all of the background scenes. So sometimes it's as little as 9, and sometimes I go as crazy as 40, and you can imagine how big some of those files end up being.
See, that when I was looking at these, that didn't even occur to me until we just started talking. I knew you had to take the shot, then you have to do the editing, but the fact that you're taking, the final image is not the one good one you got, or the one of the good ones you got that day. Is actually a composite of a bunch of them.
Yeah.
We had another guy from Canada on and I won't say his name very well, Don Camera, whatever.
Yeah, that's close.
He's an amazing macro photographer. He may take like 400 images of a snowflake.
Yeah.
And the end result is just amazing. And I did not even think about that with yours, that you're having to do that too, because you're using such a shallow depth of field lens, and you're in it. But it definitely is working. That shallow depth of field, I love that. I love the look, the feel of your images. So you mainly do this with an older version of Photoshop. Do you use anything like a Wacom tablet or anything like that, or is this all just mouse?
I do use a Wacom tablet, yeah, thank God, because that makes life a lot easier when you're doing compositing.
Yeah. I just recently, today actually, I got asked, if someone should get that. They said, should I get this? Well, do you think I'll actually use it? I don't do near what you do in Photoshop. So I use mine just sporadically. But I know the people who have used it on a regular basis don't use that even in some cases in regular Windows instead of the mouse. They've gotten so comfortable with it.
I'm guilty of that, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So when you're not shooting, what does Joel do for fun? What is?
Right now, it's kind of just a lot of everything. I'm in a great position of living next to one of the world's best cities, so it's kind of keeping tabs on what's going on around me and deciding I want to go and explore this right now. And there's been when I posted on my social media networks that I was moving, I got such a great outpouring of offers from people wanting to meet and to take me around, and it's been great. If I'm ever bored, it doesn't take very long to find someone that's willing to kind of drive me somewhere cool. And last Friday, I went and explored an abandoned or ruined abbey that was built in the 1100s. And this Friday, I'll be doing the same, going into the city and exploring. And that's one of my favorite things to do, is just wandering around and exploring. I like I said, I do run, so I enjoy going out and running. If I'm not doing either of those things, I'm usually drinking coffee, listening to music, and procrastinating about other things.
Well, I was doing some research, and I was watching some of the videos on your YouTube channel, which I'm a subscriber now, by the way. You had Joel Takes England, number 1, number 2,
yeah,
and so on. So those were some. And I can't play them here because I might have music and I'll get banned from YouTube. But we're going to link you to your YouTube page.
I decided when I moved that partly as a way for me to make sure that I got out of the house enough, but partly because I didn't really want to waste any opportunity, that I was going to do a weekly video blog of something interesting that I did during the week, and that's what I've been doing once a week, every Friday. I post a YouTube video of something that I've done, a place that I've gone, or something that I've enjoyed, and it's been fun. It's been a chance for me to really see what's around me and to plan ahead, and I have some good ones coming.
Oh, good, yeah. When I watched them, I thought, this sounds like the nicest guy I've ever met. I can't wait to talk to Joel Tuesday night.
Thank you.
Yeah. So for somebody new starting out, maybe you've made the transition now from part-time to full-time. That always seems is a struggle for everybody, is that when do you move over? But for somebody who is in the creative space, it's not wanting to necessarily shoot weddings and seniors and whatever else, some of the more, I hate to put a label on, but maybe some of the standard type stuff that people think about. Someone who wants to stay in a creative space, any advice that you would give to them as they're just getting started in this?
I think it's definitely to find that thing that separates you from everyone else, and that takes time. Like you were saying about style, it does take time to find that thing or that style or that imagery that sets you apart from everyone else. But once you find that, work on that and hone that so that you are the best one or the only one that really is offering that point of view or that type of imagery or that story or that creativity, because people will want to see that and invest in that. And I mean, being a creative photographer, I guess is what I would be called, is a bit more there's a bit more pressure than I think a portrait or wedding photographer, because there's a set market for those things. You can go to a wedding fair and you can pitch yourself and say, I want clients, and it's kind of a little bit easier to build a client base. Whereas if you're doing what I'm doing, or doing what conceptual photographers are doing, there's not really a set guideline on how to get people investing in what you do and wanting to buy what you do. But it's really just knowing who you are, knowing that you have a different story to tell than everyone else, and working on that, because people will want to see it and they'll want to follow it. And then once your following kind of grows, then the opportunities start coming.
And, and you've been at this for 6 years, which some may say is a long time. Some may say is, like, my son may say that's a long time, but he's a freshman in college. Yeah, he's a freshman in college. Somebody else may say, I can't believe he's this successful and he's only been doing it for 6 years. But either way, like with a lot of things, you got to put the work into it. You've done all these 365s, putting the work into it, and posting stuff on Flickr, and continue to hone your skills. I think with this is going to take some time. Don't expect overnight success.
Definitely. I think from working in the high school, I definitely saw a lot of the next generation as kind of instant gratification. They want the instant fame or the instant success. And the, social media apps are great for giving that, but you can't build a career just on social media. You have to know how to use your work outside of that as well. And I always kind of tell people, especially young photographers that are asking those questions, how do I get more people to see my work? And I always try and say, like, you have to prepare yourself for the day that Instagram stops being a thing, or Facebook stops being a thing, because if it happens, you can't have nothing at all. You have to have something, and I think that's what working so hard is. That's what making sure that people are paying attention or seeing what you're doing just outside of social media as well is not just getting that instant gratification, but really having a long-lasting career. And that's going to be from stepping away from the computer, which I have to remind myself to do, but making sure that what you're doing is a part of who you are, and that you're not just relying on that instant gratification.
Right. And you mentioned Facebook, and you do have a Facebook page, and you have 178,000 plus likes on there, which is really good. But I imagine even you have seen somewhat of a reduction in how many people see your post. I don't know how long you've had 178,000 or thereabout, but at one time you probably would see thousands and thousands of people seeing your post, and now it's probably somewhat it's less than that. And you're right with having to be in more than one places and doing more than one thing, and not just social media, because Facebook is changing.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard because Facebook at a time was a great resource for photographers or for artists, because it was a free resource and it has a broad audience, but they want to make money, and so they're limiting the amount of people that see certain things so that you pay money to boost it for other people to see. I still use it every day or almost every day as one of my main business hubs, because it does have a wide audience, and I do get some business out of it, and it keeps people engaged. It's a weird game to play. You kind of have to learn the game of Facebook. It's sort of like deciphering a robot. You have to kind of figure out how it works, and there's ways that it works. It's knowing when to post. It's knowing what time of the day is the best time that most people are going to be seeing it, and it's weird to have to do that, but if it helps get you work or helps get your name kind of established, it's something that is there. But I try and make sure that I'm not just relying on social media to really push myself forward, and I try and network. I try and keep those relationships I have with real people going, and those are typically the ones that do come back and I work with again and again and again, or people that I've worked with or contacted outside of just Facebook or social media.
And see, I'm so impatient when I do something. It doesn't matter if it's like 12:30 on a Tuesday, at 12:30 p.m. on a Tuesday. I'm still posting it on Facebook. I need to be more conscious, like what you're saying. You're right. There is better times to post.
Yeah, I'm guilty of doing that now too. Yeah.
But Facebook, like you said, is still I don't know of a better place to be right now. It may not be as good as it used to be, but you still got to be there. So,
Yeah.
we've talked to them about what your advice for people who are wanting to get into this field. What have you made any mistakes that if you went back and said, "Oh, I would have done that differently," as far as your professional career here, that maybe someone starting out could learn from that and hopefully not make the same mistake? Anything come to mind? And I'm kind of putting you on the spot because I didn't give you these ahead of time.
I think definitely for me it was being organized. Write back those emails in the same day if you can, or the day after. I think that some of my biggest regrets are missing out on opportunities because I got too busy, or I wasn't as time sensitive as I should have been, and missed out because I didn't get back in time. So it's being organized, making sure that you're organized. It's fun to be creative, but that organization was what's going to put food on your table and make sure that things are good in a month from now, and 2 months from now, and 3 months from now. And it's also just being aware of what you're doing. I think I see a lot, especially in younger photographers, going back to social media, is knowing what you're doing online, and knowing that if you're going to be using your name or your face as your business, know what you're posting online and know what voice you're using. I'm speaking from someone that works or has worked with some pretty high named clients. I know that I have to make sure that I'm not saying or doing anything that would look bad on them, or that would look bad on me and prevent them from ever wanting to work with me again. So it's just knowing what to do and what not to do. I don't think I've made any of those mistakes, but it's one that I'm aware of, that the potential is there to say or do something bad. I mean, we've seen it before in other people, politicians and celebrities or public figures, that do something bad online, and there it is for everyone to see, and it kind of takes about a lot of the credibility and a lot of the importance away.
Yeah, and, sometimes we all have our things that we're passionate about, that outside of like photography. But you're right. You pick a subject; it doesn't matter. It can be the most boring subject it is. There's someone on both sides.
Yeah,
and sometimes you have to say, "So what? I'm going to make a stand." But you often, if you, a lot of times when you're in a business, you really want to serve, because I work for a business, not as a photographer, but as the accountant and the CIO over the IT, and we want to serve everybody. Our business wants to serve everybody. There's no one group we don't want to serve, and that's, if you're in this for a business, you have to think about that. There's still limits to what you will do and what you will accept. But you don't want to isolate your potential customers or current customers if you can help it. And I had a great thought and I just lost it. But we'll move on to the next. We're wrapping this up here as we come up to the hour. And I know it's real late for you, Joel, and I really appreciate you staying up late, over there in England and for us. But any locations in your mind? I would love to go shoot at this location. I've never shot there before. It's something that maybe it's on my bucket list. I'd like to go shoot at. You have a scene in mind if you can get there?
I think every day since I moved, there's been one that's mentally added to my list. People will send me links to places of, you have to check this out, and it immediately gets pushed right to the front. But if I were to close my eyes, I could go real big and just say I'd love to shoot at Disneyland by myself, but I don't think that's going to happen. No, I think that shooting in amazing locations, I've been so fortunate to see some of the world's most beautiful places. Just almost this time last year, I was in Egypt in front of the pyramids, and to see stuff like that is real, that is history. I would love to go back there and shoot there as well. I'd love to go to the rainforests in South America. I would love to see Bali and kind of the coast of Vietnam. Once I get going, I don't know.
So there's a lot of them on the list.
Yeah. Well, one that's coming up for sure that I definitely want to go to is Norway. I'm really, really excited to go there and visit and take a lot of pictures of the amazing locations that exist there for sure.
I've been totally off subject, but I've been watching a Netflix original called Lilyhammer, and it's filmed there in Norway. And just watching that show, I'd love to go visit there now. But I did remember what I was going to ask earlier, and not necessarily ask, but just a statement. You mentioned how you struggle with the organization and getting back to people, and you get busy with one thing. There comes a point, and it's different for every person, but there comes a point where, hey, maybe I need to farm some of these things out, get an assistant. I know that I've talked to different people who said, I'm going to hire somebody, not maybe full-time, but part-time, or whatever it is, that's going to handle my emails, are going to handle the booking of things, they're going to handle, take what I'm good at, and I'll focus on that, and take what I'm not good at, and I'll farm that out and have somebody do it. If you're just starting out, that probably you can't afford to do that. But, at some point, as you become more and more successful, and not necessarily talking to you, Joel, I'm talking to the person just starting out, as you become more and more successful, that's something to consider. Where's your time? You only have so much time to devote to what you're doing, your business. Where's the most effective use of that time?
For sure, yeah. I have control issues, so I don't like giving up control. I like to know everything is.
Yeah, I think I would think a lot of creative photographers who have those control issues. I can't let anybody edit my photos. I mean, that is who I am. That's my thing. But maybe on some of the business side, we'll see. We'll talk in a few years whenever you're crazy successful. So, in speaking of a few years, what is next for Joel?
I wish I knew. I've never been one to really plan very far ahead in advance. Actually, moving here was kind of the first time that I've actually planned more than 2 months in advance. I really try and focus on living on the now and what is available to me, kind of today and tomorrow and the next day. I have a visa that is valid until 2016, so if I wanted to stay, I could stay for that long. But I'm really just hoping to keep doing what I'm doing. I really love creating, and I really love the work that I've been able to do with other people. I would love to obviously work with Coca-Cola and FIFA again if the opportunity exists. I know that Coca-Cola does a lot of different opportunities and different programs that I would love to be a part of if that exists. But I would really just like to keep telling my stories and sharing them with people, and that's kind of that's what I think about when I wake up in the morning is what am I going to shoot today, and what am I going to share today, and that's what kind of gives me the motivation to get up and go and to work harder and to make sure that I'm constantly doing something creative is it's what I love to do, and I'm very, very fortunate to be one of those people that gets to wake up and do what they love to do, and that's all I can really plan on doing is doing that.
Yeah, very good. And lastly, where can people, people listening to this, watching this, I can't get enough of Joel. We'll have the links in the show notes, but for people who aren't going to go visit our show notes, where can people find out more about Joel and stay in touch with Joel?
The great thing is I'm easy to find. My website is kind of a hub for everything. It's just joelrobison.com. I'm also on Facebook, like you said, facebook.com/Joel Robison Photography, flickr.com/Joel_R, and Instagram is at Joel Robison. I'm easy to find. Even if you just Google my name, you'll be able to find more information than you probably would ever care to know. But I like to use social media as a way to interact with people and to constantly connect with people. And most of my best friends I've met through the internet, and every opportunity I've had is from there. So I like to use it as a way to really connect with people.
Okay. And one last thing I thought of: how did you get the nickname Boy Wonder?
I was just going to say that because it's on a couple of the links.
I can look at the photos and give you that title myself, but I didn't give it to you.
It's not a congratulatory self, pat on my back, and it's also not an homage to Batman, which some people think it is. It was a phrase used in a song by one of my favorite Canadian singers. Her name is Sarah Slean, and she just had this line that said something about Boy Wonder, and I just really liked that name, and I used it as a username, not ever thinking that anyone would ever ask me why. And I've had to explain it a few times as to why that exists, and my close friends and family still call me that just as a tease.
I knew there must be some little story to it.
Yeah.
Well, Joel, thank you for coming out. It's been a pleasure talking to you, and we wish you, continued success, and look forward to looking at your images and following you as you continue down this path. And thank you, for staying up so late. When we first talked about you coming on the show, I think you were still in Canada.
Yeah.
And thank you so much for staying up this late with us, because it must be, what,
3 in the morning, 4 in the morning,
It's almost
somewhere
3
around
in the
there.
morning, yeah.
Oh my God! All right, so I'll wrap this up. Thank you very much for coming. If we'll have this out by this weekend, hopefully, if you missed some of this show, and we'll have all this stuff in the show notes. Until next week, when Tim and I will be doing a show, and we may have another third person on, I don't know, but we'll have a show next week. Until next week, keep it raw. Good night, everybody.
Good night, everybody.